Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Groove right here on Northwest Access TV. We are finally back after a very long time off the air, about a month, I think it's been. I mean, we've had Veterans Day, we've had Dustin running for state senate.
Yeah.
We've had just all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah, something I've learned, and all the kids out here can learn this too. If you're running for public office, you do not have a lot of free time. That's a fact right there, Nick. You can take that one to the bank. And then when we were about to come back, it was Veterans Day, so the studio was closed, and we were both ready to come back and do a show. And so now we're here, and now the season's over.
Yes, the season is over. NASCAR, the last race last night, very bittersweet, but it's over. And so from here on out, the show's going to be looking a little bit different. We're going to be going to a half-hour show now. But we're also going to be adding some new stuff as well. So you're still going to be getting the same amount of Inside Groove. It's just going to be, some of it's going to be in the form of a podcast that we're just starting up now. We're going to talk about, things as they happen. You'll get our reaction just about right away to whatever news comes out. So, if let's say Daniel Suarez signs with the new team next week on Tuesday, we can talk about that right on Tuesday. You can get mine and Dustin's reaction right then, rather than having to wait till Monday.
And I think one of the things to jump on you here, and both of us do winter sports for Northwest Access TV, and winter sports season is coming, so we're staring at spending a lot of cold nights in hockey arenas and basketball arenas. So we might not always have time to actually get in here and do everything. So I'm looking forward to the 30 minutes. There's always a lot that goes on in the 90 days between now and the Daytona 500. That's not even counting speed weeks. So, we're only 80 days away from racing. So,
But yeah, I'm excited for it because I think that we're going to be able to bring better content to all of you guys, and we're going to see how it goes, with a 30-minute show. If we feel like we're not getting enough out there to you guys, then maybe we'll bring it back up to an hour. We're going to try out 30 minutes a week. For the off season until Daytona, and then we'll be right back into our regular groove. But I feel like I'm really excited for the direction that things are going in. And also, before we get into the show tonight, I do want to mention David Pearson, who's probably the most underrated legend of NASCAR in the entire history of NASCAR. He passed away before the Homestead race last week. So rest in peace, David Pearson, a true champion.
Yeah, I think David Pearson's one of those guys, and it's one of those things where if he ran as many races as Richard Petty ran, he might have 200 wins. One of the real champions of the sport, and it was interesting because, there was a story about how he wasn't part of the first Hall of Fame class, and he was pissed. And that, he's one of the most iconic guys. He brought he is the Wood Brothers, basically.
Right.
He brought the Wood Brothers to prominence, so it was really sad seeing him pass. He did have a good life. It was nice to see Paul Menard put the name decal on the top and have him ride along one more time, but he will be missed.
Yeah, for sure. Second all-time in his career in wins with 105. Only Richard Petty and David Pearson have won triple-digit races in their career. That says something. So, rest in peace, David Pearson. Really sad to see that happen. But now we're going to go into what happened over the last few weeks, and then at Homestead we'll start off with what's taken place over the last couple of weeks since we've missed. We missed the Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix races. So let's jump in with Martinsville here. We saw one of the craziest moments of the entire year in this race, as we often do at the end of in the fall Martinsville race between Joey Logano and Martin Truex Jr. What even was this?
That was Martinsville. That's the format, man. And we see now, spoiler alert, Joey Logano wins the championship, right? We see now why you move somebody out of the way. All right, because he wrecked at Phoenix. He wouldn't have made it if he would have said, "All right, I'm going to finish second to Martin Truex." He would not have made the championship for. Right. And you look at that move. It wasn't even a dirty move. He just gave him the bump and run. Right. It's not like he put him in the wall. It wasn't like Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, where he put him in the wall. Truex could have won that race still if he decided to drive off, but he decided to drive into Logano. So I think it's a clean move. If I'm running in a NASCAR race, you make that move 10 times out of 10 because your sponsors want to see you win, your fans want to see you win. if you had a chance to just bump somebody, move them up the track, you do it. It's not dirty. It's not a dirty move at all.
I mean, this has been going on for years and years and years, and the debate's always been here. Is this, is the bump and run a dirty move, or is it just racing? And I think all 40 of these drivers that go out there on Sunday, give them the opportunity to win this race and advance to compete for a championship, I think all of them would have done it. Martin Truex Jr., I understand his frustration because, listen, he raced Joey Logano clean for 20 laps before Logano moved him out of the way. I understand the frustration there, but at the same time, Martin Truex, you've got to expect it. You've got to, know how to. You've got to just make this pass happen, and you got to know it was coming. You can't be upset about it.
You got to know when you pass him and you just barely get by him that it's coming back.
Right.
Like you saw it with Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch back at New Hampshire, right? You saw him move out of the way, and you saw I think it was Harvick who won that race, drive away because he knew if Busch got close enough to his back bumper, he was going in the wall, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think MTJ's kind of a baby, It's, talks like Dale Earnhardt, races like Mark Martin. I think that was what Dale Jr. said or something. Somebody said that quote, and that really is... he's all talk. Like he said, I'm not going to let Joey Logano win the championship, and
he literally did that, and that was my biggest problem with it because Truex talked it up. He made it sound like he was this big tough guy after getting moved out of the way for the win. He advanced to Homestead. He had the second best car at Homestead. He had multiple opportunities to just completely take Logano. Yeah, he had multiple opportunities to just completely take Logano out of the picture. I can think of three instances of that in the last 50 laps. And, he just chose not to. He chose to race him cleanly again, and he lost the championship because of it.
And look, it's fine that MTJ decided to run like that towards the end, but if you were going to talk up such a big game, back it up, all right? Put him in the fence. Okay, like if you were going to say that you were going to put him in the fence and then you don't put him in the fence, then you lose. Then what you look at to me is you are a crybaby at this point. Your argument's not valid, and if I'm a driver, I'm going to move my Truex because what's he going to do to me? He's just going to talk it up. Okay, good for him.
Right. Yeah, and I've got to agree with that. I mean, man, I just think that this makes Truex look very, very weak at the end of the day.
That's because he is.
Well, I mean, you look at it, this opens up the door for him to get roughed right up by each and every one of those drivers from here on out because, he said they moved him. He said he was going to do something about it. He never did when he had the opportunity. And so at the end of the day, I think this could affect Martin Truex Jr. in the future because drivers are going to say, listen, we can rough this guy up like this and he won't do anything about it. So at the end of the day, I don't think this was a good play by Martin Truex Jr. at all.
I think Joey did the right thing, and Joey was moved at Martinsville. Joey was put in the wall at Martinsville, and he knows how it feels, and he knows that, look, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to get that car in the victory lane. Yep. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this carries over into next season too.
Right. I don't think it'll carry over too much, but I just think that's a thing to watch out for. As Truex might get roughed up a little bit more than he did last year, especially going over to Gibbs. So we'll see what happens there. Another thing before we move on from this that really had me a little bit frustrated from this whole event was you had a guy like Christopher Bell on Twitter, just for an example. There was many people all over social media who were pretty upset about this whole thing. Christopher Bell was straight up livid that Martin Truex Jr. got booted out of the way, that Logano made this move. And, man, this really just concerned me as a fan of the sport, knowing that guys like Christopher Bell are the future of NASCAR. And for them to take such offense and have such a big issue with, the bump and run and just good, hard racing, I think that kind of shows the future of this sport, where it's going, and I don't like that path from a fan standpoint, and for these drivers and just an overall product of NASCAR. I don't like the way it's going.
It's interesting. I think the Joe Gibbs drivers, I think the drivers at the two elite teams, Stuart Haas and Joe Gibbs, tend to be babies. And I say that in the nicest way. And Eric Almirola was mad that he got raced hard at Texas, right? Like, I say this as somebody who has been watching this pattern develop where these two, and they're drivers from these two teams really, where it's just kind of like, man, they're just getting more pissy whenever they get moved or anything. And, Christopher Bell is part of that Joe Gibbs team where we can just outrun you with speed, so don't touch us. And it's like, okay, so you're kind of an elitist here. I don't know. I don't think we have anything to worry about because as long as there is underdog teams, there will be somebody who will move you. And I think that's important to remember. He'll get moved. It'll happen.
Yeah, and so now moving on to the next week after Martinsville, Texas, we just talked about Eric Almirola taking issue with Joey Logano, kind of racing him hard on the last lap. They didn't make contact, but Almirola, going at him. Once again, through the interview, I don't think he really said anything to him or did anything. I think he realized he was wrong, honestly. I think
a couple days after he realized he was wrong.
Logano just took the air out from under the side of Eric Almirola's car. So, at the end of the day, I don't think that was a very big deal at all. The big deal from this race came from Almirola's Stewart-Haas Racing teammate Kevin Harvick, who suffered a huge penalty. He lost 40 points, had Rodney Childers, his crew chief, and his car chief as well, ejected for the last two races after that. He barely made the championship 4 because of this. He only made the championship 4 because Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch both crashed at Phoenix. Harvick, looking back at this penalty, do you think that this losing, those crucial members of his team, do you think that is why they lost this championship?
Well, I think this is the watershed moment of the season because let's take a step back and look at this penalty first off. It was an L1 penalty. So for the NASCAR rulebook, L1 penalty is like the Tom Brady getting suspended, right?
Right.
That's where it is. And NASCAR was thinking about making this an L2, a level 2 penalty. So this was something that was so severe. NASCAR was thinking of taking away even more points. The way the points work is that you got 2 stages. You got 2 stages in your race. So NASCAR only took away the race win points. They didn't take away any of the stage points. And that was really important. But the infraction that you got caught on, if you don't appeal, they caught you with something.
Right.
Because that was the first thing that I noticed is like, they didn't appeal? So what were they trying to get away with? And then the fabricating another spoiler when they're supposed to buy from this manufacturer, when it's supposed to be a spec part, basically, was why I was like, wow, it makes you wonder, because Harvick's been caught twice cheating this year. He got caught twice. So it makes you wonder how much he was able to get away with. And one of the things I was thinking about was, with the inspection that was tighter yesterday, all of a sudden, Kevin Harvick doesn't have runaway speed for the first time all year on a 1.5 mile track.
Right.
All of a sudden, Kyle Busch's car doesn't have speed. These are 2 cars that would run up front all the time. And after Kevin Harvick got nailed, it was just kind of like, he's not running as fast anymore. So I think this was a big moment in this season. I think this is what you can look at and said, open the championship back up.
Right.
Because, Joey Logano has been consistent, average finish of 10.3, I think. But he hasn't been as fast as Harvick. Harvick's was an 8.7 average finish, right? So you look at that and you say, this is interesting because they tried something and they got caught red-handed.
So this brings me to my next question on this is that, do you think that the whole encumbered win thing and the L1 penalties, do you think that these are do you think that this rule is correct and the penalties are fitting the crimes at this point, or do you think that something needs to happen here?
Well, it's interesting because I think if you're not cheating in racing, you're not trying. If you're not cheating in any type of sport, you're not trying, right? The best teams have the best coaching and the best cheaters. It's that simple. So you look at this and I say, I think the whole race should have if he ran an entire race of an illegal spoiler, you take away both stage wins. You say you started and finished in 40th. You take that away. But I think NASCAR was trying to be a little lenient here because, it does look bad to have this big of a penalty on somebody who's won so many races. But it'll be interesting to see how this carries over to next year, because there's been a lot of stuff more and more about the encumbered wins and about, well, if you're going to take away the win on the track, give the win to second place. Right? You should give the trophy to second place.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a consensus on how everybody wants that. I don't think there's very many people at all that.
No.
I mean, this is something that's really confused me over the last couple of years. NASCAR's come up with these L1, L2 penalties, and they just don't. They haven't ever taken away the whole first place loses that spot, second place gets the win. I think that should have been, in place a couple of years ago. And I don't know, for whatever reason, they just don't see it as a realistic possibility. It doesn't make sense to me per se, but maybe there's something that we're missing as the fans here and that we don't see that they're saying for.
Well, I think the first thing you look at is that we don't have a public copy of the rule book.
Right.
I think we can take a couple of I think we could let's release the rule book publicly and let's scale back on some of the rules a little bit. I think we can be a little less strict with it. But it's really interesting. It really is interesting to me.
The thing here that really concerns me, I think, the most is that you look at Harvick with earlier in the year with the whole back window being punched in, and then there was like the infraction here was like just a couple of holes in the spoiler at the back. I mean, these are just tiny modifications to the car, but they're winning him races and he's flying by everybody. I think that while if you're not cheating, you're not racing is I agree with that, but at the same time, man, you just at the same time this is sad that the aero these tiny modifications have such a big influence on how well your car runs. I don't like the fact that these cars are just specific finely tuned aerodynamic machines. I don't know. There's something that just draws me away. I don't like that in this. It turns me off on NASCAR. I want to see, the best drivers go out and show that they're skilled enough to win. I don't want to see the fastest cars. I want to see the fastest drivers.
Well, this is why I'm a fan of the 2019 package that is getting lambasted online. But I think with the 2019 package, in the case where you don't have to lift in the corner for the first 5 to 10 laps, but then tire wear becomes an issue, I think we're going to see a little more of the best drivers wheeling next year. Because I think I am part of the camp that says, well, if you keep adding horsepower, that's great and cars can go fast, but what is the skill of the stock car? Right. The whole point of the stock car is a boxy car, right? You want cars that go 200 miles per hour, go watch IndyCar, right? And those guys fly, and it's a skill point there. But I think the 2019 package might solve some of your issues because while we are not going to move away from aero because of safety and how it is nowadays. But with that being said, I think we'll get a chance to see some of these drivers who are decent get a chance to be able to wheel with the best of them. And it won't be who puts together the fastest 1.5 miler car and can hit the bottom line around the track. It won't be these boring races. The All-Star race was a lot of fun, and they're adding a little more horsepower to that package. I'm sold for right now. Like, it might not be popular with the online fan base, but as a fan, you want to tell me I can have 30 guys who can be racing for 500 miles?
Right.
I'm kind of sold.
Yeah, and basically, for those of you who don't know the 2019 rules package, basically, they're putting the tapered spacer in. It's kind of like a restrictor plate, but not really at the same time. It does the same job as the restrictor plate, just not as much.
Not as much. And another thing that they're doing is that they're lowering horsepower.
Right.
And the big thing about the anti-horsepower people, what I see when I say this is I say this in the sense of we can now attract more manufacturers. It has come to light that people like Nissan or Mazda don't want to enter the sport because you have to have so much horsepower. So by limiting some horsepower, we can then go to these manufacturers and be like, hey, come to NASCAR, man. Like, come race on our cars. So.
Yeah, and it helps, too, because you look at it, like you said, there's going to be more people that can compete for races. There's going to be closer racing. We're going to see a lot more passing. We're going to see a lot more side-by-side racing. We're going to see a lot more guys, catching up to each other when last year, that lead's going to stay at 1.5 seconds. We're going to see a lot more guys running in, and couple of 10 laps to go, we're going to see guys running each other down, making a pass on the last lap. I remember back in the days, back when I first started, when I was just a kid, like 2005, 2006, the old Gen 4 cars. I was watching a couple of races last week. Carl Edwards, back in 2007, I think it was, with 10 laps to go in an Atlanta race, was about 2 seconds back in third place. And he came back and he won the race. He made the pass for the lead with 3 laps to go. I was thinking, man, with this aero package and with this rule package on these cars right now, there is 0% chance of that happening. You would never see that. I think, and those are the kind of finishes that made things really, really exciting too. Draws people to the stands, puts people watching people on TV.
Make too.
If the racing's going to be better, that's what's going to happen.
We're at the point of NASCAR where we're starting to hit a lull on our ratings, right? We have hit the popularity of the sport. Dale Earnhardt, mid-2000s, it was at the highest. Now we need to start earning some new fans back. And as much as everybody whines and complains about the playoff format and the new package,
which I think is great.
I think the playoff format's... I
don't like the playoff package. Well, where were you this year when these races were on? You obviously weren't watching. Were you watching?
Let me ask you. When Matt Kenseth clinched with 5 races to go, did you have a reason to watch Homestead 20 years ago? Right. No. I like the playoff format because it gives me a reason to watch that final race. And people are like, well, racing should be... the best person for all 36 races. They give out a regular season trophy. Right. So, suck it.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing that stands out to me right there too, is that I've seen a lot since Logano won that Joey Logano is not the best driver. He doesn't deserve this championship because he wasn't in the Big Three. It should have been a Big Three driver. Listen, turn on a baseball game, turn on a basketball game, football, any major professional sport. Other than my 2018 Red Sox, the best team in the sport very rarely wins it all. I mean, the playoffs are, a survive and advance kind of thing. You look at Duke in college basketball. They recruit the best team every year, but do they win the championship every year? No, because it's tough to win a championship. I think that, that's just frustrated. That's frustrated me because I think you win a championship if you win a championship every year you're supposed to, that's not as much fun. I think, losing those championships, getting that heartbreak makes winning the championship that much better.
Did the 2007 New England Patriots win the championship?
They did not.
Exactly.
Way to, take away my Boston.
All right. Here's the thing. And this is what gets me, is that it's about performing. I like the playoff format, okay? Right. You have 500 miles. If you don't think the best driver, or actually 400 miles for EcoBoost that weekend, but if you don't think 400 miles is enough to decide who should win that race and should win that championship, I get it. But there's a regular season championship, and they get a playoff boost. Kevin Harvick, the 4 best, most consistent drivers, you could have slotted. You even rolled the tape on this show to talk about how I thought Logano was a threat or Kurt Busch. The top 5 most consistent drivers ended up finishing 5 out of the 6 point spots of Eric Almirola, who's been consistent in there too. So I don't think it's a cheap way. I think this is a great way to get some more people watching, get more people in the stands. I've heard that the package for next year is going to be like the truck races in some cases. I'm like, truck racing is a lot of fun to watch. If you can give me that on a Sunday, I'm going to keep tuning in.
Right. I think that, my other part that I really enjoy about the playoff format is that you look at this championship 4, they have it one race, the best finisher among the 4 best drivers throughout the playoffs decides it all. You got to bet. You got to finish ahead of everybody else, which means you probably have to win the race.
You got to come
before, even in the old chase formats, it was always Jimmy Johnson is this many points ahead. Kevin Harvick needs 29 points in order to win this championship. He needs to beat Johnson by this many points. There was just so much math in it. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't mean to slate NASCAR fans, but NASCAR does not have the most intelligent demographic of people. I think that it just makes it simpler for everybody. You can sit there without a calculator and just simply enjoy the race and know what's going to happen.
And I think there's a lot to speak to. It's not fun when the championship. He won the championship by finishing in 16th. That's not fun.
Right.
Like that means you can coast into the last weekend. And
yeah.
like I don't like that. I want everything on the table. I want my 4 best drivers, and I want to be like, all right, let's go. We want to be a major sport. We want to play with the big boys. We're going to have a big boy playoff format, and it's different than anything in the world as far as motorsports goes. And you look at Formula One, how many people did they have towards the end of the year running for a championship? Like one?
One,
two?
barely 2. Yeah.
You look at IndyCar. How many people did they have running? The last race was like a double points race, and it was like pretty much decided. So like I didn't tune in because I'm like, well, what's the point? This guy's gonna win. Like
Right.
with NASCAR, you got to tune in and be watching at that last lap because you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't look at the Patriots going to the Super Bowl playing, Philly and say, all right, Patriots have won 5 Super Bowls. The Eagles have never won before. The Patriots had a better record this year, so
Another trophy.
The Patriots are going to start leading 16-0 to start the game, and the Eagles have to come back and win. No, that doesn't happen. So I think that NASCAR. At the end of the day, people are always saying, we're resistant. We don't want NASCAR to be other sports. At the end of the day, other sports are where the money is. You look at the NBA and the NFL. These are multi-billion-dollar corporations, and NASCAR is kind of lagging behind. So I think the more you become like a professional sport, I think that's better
Yeah, it starts
for
with a playoff, and it's fine. I like it. Parity and a playoff. Get those two things, and NASCAR will slowly make its way back. I don't think we've reached our peak decline yet, but hey, we'll get it back. It'll be fine in the world.
All right, so let's move on into recapping these the 3 races over the weekend for the championship. Xfinity Cup Series, Truck Series, all went at it. Let's start with the Cup race here and get this thing out of the way. I mean, Joey Logano finally wins his first championship in his 10th year. He's gone through a lot from being passed up by Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota. They completely gave up on him. A lot of people have labeled him as just a dirty driver that will take anybody out anytime. I've really grown to respect Joey Logano over the last couple of years, simply because I think that he's really matured. He's not a kid who's just going to run his mouth and run over people anymore. I think he's really smartened up as a race car driver. I think he's earned the respect of his peers, and I think he's really grown as a driver. So, I think he's incredibly deserving of this.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
And as Dustin plays with his
Joey Logano diecast,
Joey Logano diecast
164. Can we get a zoom in on that, Zach? But put it right here. Can we get the zoom in? No. All right.
Zach doesn't want to zoom.
Oh, he's going for it.
Here we go.
There we go. That's the one Joey Logano diecast I own.
Look at that.
Look at that beautiful thing. Look at that beautiful Pennzoil Shell 22 Ford Fusion.
As we completely get sidetracked here, what about that Pennzoil Shell Fusion's pass with 12 laps to go last night?
I love the Joey Logano story. I really do, because this is a guy who was brought up way too fast because Tony Stewart decided he didn't want to drive in a Toyota. And whatever, Tony Stewart didn't want to drive in a Toyota. Good for him. But Logano was rushed into this legendary 20-car seat, and he obviously underperforms. Wasn't he like 19 when he was put in that seat or something? Like
I think he was 20, yeah.
He was either 19 or 20. He was insanely young. He was not ready yet. And then when he didn't perform, Joe Gibbs and Toyota were like, well, you didn't perform, so get out of here. And then he was at this point where his career could have been over.
Right.
But then Brad Keselowski noticed, it was like, hey, come on over to Penske. I'll make it work for you. And he did. And then he almost won a championship a couple years ago. And then there was he took out Matt Kenseth in a perfect racing move, in my opinion.
Before, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before we move on from that, I want to say Penske was at a crossroads at that point too. I mean, they had just gone through, AJ Allmendinger was their big driver that they had acquired, and all of a sudden he fails a drug test. He's out of the sport completely for a year and a half. And then they got their other guys, Kurt Busch, who
just went crazy.
Kurt Busch literally went through this phase for about 3 years maybe more like 5 years from when he left Jack Roush in 2010 to about 2005 and then until about 2011 when he left Penske. This man was just a raging lunatic.
I want to actually get the numbers on this because
and Penske, I mean, they were losing Kurt Busch. They had Brad Keselowski, who was a a really good driver in the Xfinity Series, but then got passed over at Hendrick for Mark Martin. He ran in the Cup Series for a couple of years and didn't perform. Logano comes over, Keselowski wins that championship, and all of a sudden Logano picks up his pace as well. Now they've got that third team.
Well, you look at, so I want to back you up. So your numbers on the Busch thing were wrong. He left Roush in 2005.
Yes, yeah.
Because he asked Jack Roush,
Right.
let me out of this contract. And
Well,
then,
Roush, what happened was he won the championship in 2004, and then in 2005, heading to the Phoenix race, he got arrested for reckless driving. He was going like 120 miles per hour or something stupid like that.
Was that in 2005?
Yeah, that was in 2005 for the Phoenix race, because then he got suspended for the last two races.
2005 Phoenix DUI.
Right. Oh, it was a DUI.
It was a DUI.
And yeah, and Jack Roush was just like, "See ya, dude." And they and Roush at that point thought that Jamie McMurray was going to be a big winner, and so they brought Jamie McMurray to take over for what was the 97, and Kurt Busch went to
And then he had
Penske.
the 4 years from 2006 to 2010 in Penske. Let me tell you.
These are the most interesting 4 years in
If
the
I
NASCAR
could get a
history,
NASCAR
as we get
30
incredibly sidetracked
But
right
if I
now.
could get a NASCAR 30 for 30, Kurt Busch's career would be on the top 5 of what I want. Because if you go back and listen to the radio of those 45 years, whoa.
Don't do it around your kids, folks.
There is some good radio from that car. And then, so like you were mentioning, getting back on track, they had this tumultuous 2000, the 22 car, and they moved Busch over to the 22 car, and then Busch was like, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore." In 2011, they swapped teams.
Right. And then Kurt Busch, as we get even more sidetracked, went off to the Phoenix Racing Group and just completely underperformed there, and even further lost his mind before,
to the point where he ran the actual me car from Talladega Nights. Like, he actually ran that car in a race because they didn't have sponsorship.
Right.
So.
And then he went to Furniture Row and
turned that team around.
Turned them around, and he turned his career around as well. But anyway, off the Kurt Busch stuff, Joey Logano helped save Penske, and
he helped save that
go
sponsorship, and he helped save that team to the point where they finally had a good, consistent driver in there,
right.
And he had a chance to win the championship a couple of years ago, and then the whole Matt Kenseth thing happened, and Kenseth took him out. It's kind of poetic that Joey Logano wins after taking a Toyota out at Martinsville, because he was taken out in a year where he should have won that championship.
Oh yeah, that was his championship to lose.
And you then get to this final restart, and his pit crew nails the final 2 pit stops. Like, he had a pit stop earlier in that race where he went from 4th to 1st or something like that. Like, his pit crew, NASCAR is a team sport, man.
Right.
Like, his pit crew, 100%, all pit stops last night. And then he just drives this thing. Was it 12 to go when he made the pass?
I think so, yeah. 12.
Whenever he
go,
made the
like
pass, he drives this thing 185 into turn 1 next to the wall, and everybody who watches NASCAR is thinking, he's about to put this Ford in the wall.
Right.
And he did not. And
I don't think he lifted,
he did not lift.
You watch Homestead, for the people that don't know Homestead, you've got to lay off. If you're running the inside, you've got to lay off quite a bit going into one or turn 3. And if you're riding up against the wall, you can get away with letting off a little bit less, but then you got to kind of caress that throttle as you come around, because if you get into it too hard, you kind of miss the corner, then you're going to be up in the wall and destroy your car. So Logano literally risked his entire season and this championship. He went for it, definition of full send, and it worked out for him. And I was sitting there watching this. I don't think I've ever seen a better corner in my life. I can't remember a more signature championship move other than when Tony Stewart made it 4 wide on the restart at Homestead in 2011.
I just saw that move happen, and I was like, he did not. Did this dude just do this? Like that? I was like, whoa. Like, I've just never seen somebody drive it in that aggressively and make it stick.
Make it out to turn 4, yeah.
And he drove it in, rides that wall, slides up the track a little bit, doesn't lift at all, and he just blows past the 78 because I don't know, he had a really good car for the short run, and man, that's just a bold move because 9 times out of 10, you are putting the card in the wall with that move. And he got the luck of the draw on that one and was able to not put it into the wall.
Yeah, just a crazy race last night, honestly. I mean, this was something else for sure. But, moving on here, I was pretty surprised about Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. Like you said, maybe it was that they didn't want to get caught cheating.
So everybody put on your tinfoil hats, because this is where my conspiracy comes in. Joey Logano has been quietly consistent. And last year, he missed the playoffs because his one win was encumbered.
Right. That's crazy, too. Logano goes from finishing like 17th in the playoff standings last year to winning it this year.
To missing it.
To nobody else, has done that ever.
And so my conspiracy theory here is that, Furniture Row could try anything because they're shut down. They don't care, right? But JGR and Stuart Haas both look, Kevin Harvick looked the slowest he's looked in a while last night. And it makes you wonder, because he rolled off the truck pretty slow too. The odds changed. Like he was the worst betted person in Vegas. Like going into this on Sunday morning, Kevin Harvick was no longer the favorite, and he rolled off slow, and he didn't really have a fast car. He didn't look great in qualifying, and I don't want to say the cheating caught up to them, but I definitely think that they were purposely not pushing the envelope in some places.
Yeah, which is, definitely weird, but I think Kyle Busch looked really good, super fast in practice, super fast in qualifying, started second, and, got the first pit stall, which we'll get to in a second here. But he was, fast all weekend, and then, he was fast to begin the race, and then there was the pit road mistake. They didn't get all the lug nuts tight, I believe it was, and he had to, it was a long stop. And after that, he restarted deep in the field, and then his car just kind of went away. And even when he did get out in front, later on in the race, they made another mistake, and then he used Adam Stevens with a great strategy call to, get him out there, get him back in the lead with 20 to go. So they set Kyle Busch up to win this championship, and then his car just failed him. It was just, I didn't see it coming. And for Joe Gibbs Racing to make 2 mistakes in a championship race, their pit crew, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen this.
I love that.
See Joey Logano's championship car. Nice.
Was that the shot of me because I wasn't paying attention there for a second? Was the we caught Dustin not paying attention shot? No, I don't know. Tasteful B-roll coming from Zach. It was interesting to see Kyle Busch because Kyle Busch threw the Hail Mary and it actually worked.
Right.
And then he got out of first on pit road, and then he just didn't have nothing. I don't remember the last time Kyle Busch just had absolutely nothing. Because you would think, all right, 20 laps to go, we're restarting, he's restarting first. He's going to at least put up a fight, and he just sank. It's interesting that he did not have any speed. I don't know what.
It's just, I don't know, maybe they made a bad adjustment or something on the last stop, but.
Well, and he said his car was trash all day, so, you're wondering, how do you bring a car that bad to Homestead when you're Joe Gibbs Racing?
Right.
And
the thing is, for me, though, the car wasn't trash. To begin they didn't bring a trash car to Homestead. I mean, man, they were second qualifying. They topped the charts for the majority of the practice sessions, and then it was a 5th place car at best in the race.
And it's so weird to me to see that the carryover and maybe the track conditions were different. I don't know what it was, but the difference between Saturday and Sunday for that 18 team was night and day.
Right.
And even when, at first you're like, okay, he's got a slower car today. Maybe he's setting up for the night portion of the race, so it comes in. It just never came in for the guys. Right. So I wonder how they missed.
Now, as for Harvick, an interesting stat, he started 12th at Homestead. Obviously they didn't bring a good car to the track for whatever reason. No. And I think that, maybe the preparation aspect of it, they didn't know if they were going to be in or not. They were the only team that didn't really know if they would be in or not going into that last race. So they didn't have as much time to prepare the car as, the Loganos or Kyle Busch's did. But, I mean, he started 12th at Homestead. He only had 4 starts than that, or starts worse than that all season long. Worse than that all season long. In and that's not counting, races where he had to start at the back.
He got wrecked or something.
Right. But, man, he started 12th for such an important race. He never had the car. It looked, he honestly, if that race stays green, though, at the end, I think Harvick would have actually won it.
I think Harvick had a chance.
Truex possibly, yeah. Because, you got to remember, Harvick was leading. And coming off pit road, he had the stop to come off pit road. For the first time all year, Harvick got pit road luck. And Truex and Logano was right behind him. It looked like Logano was going to pass him, and then Harvick just drove away. Truex caught up to Logano. It looks like Truex might have had a chance. And then the caution came out, so we had no idea. But after that caution, Harvick just had nothing.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see how that... you think about it now that they had to actually compete at Phoenix, and I think maybe that was not part of their plan. You think, all right, Harvick always does well at Phoenix, and he did well, but, the fact that they had the added pressure of that week and the losing the crew chief, this is where, you look at your crew chief being suspended and you say, maybe their crew chief could have made the right decisions. Maybe he could have made the right couple of calls. And that's where, you go back to their discussion earlier about the penalty. That's where the penalty is actually worth it, right?
Right.
It was really interesting to see the two fastest drivers this year just come with nothing for most of the race.
Yeah.
Whether it be Kyle Busch just being slow during the race or Kevin Harvick just being slow off the truck. It was a really interesting and weird weekend where, you don't really feel like Joey Logano. You saw him gaining momentum. First practice, he had a really fast lap that he was like, oh, wow, that was shocking. They kept getting at it, and I think they just had the better car over the course of the weekend, and that's why they won. Yeah. They got the short run they needed and I think, Team Joey Logano, they really bet on that 20 to 35 lap run.
Right.
And they won the bet.
Yep.
And he outdrove them.
Then he won the war. Before we move on to the Xfinity race, I want to do what is one word that you would use to describe this season for Martin Truex Jr., considering all the circumstances. Mine for it is a disappointment. And, they didn't have anything to lose in this race, and they went out and they lost it. They didn't win. I think the only appropriate, acceptable result for this race in this season would be to win the championship, go out on top. I think they kind of left Homestead with their tail between their legs.
I think the word I would use to describe Furniture Row would be, can I use sigh as a word? Because it was just,
as he sighs.
That's how I felt about the end of Furniture Row Racing because, Joe Gibbs Racing pricing Barney out for starters, them losing 5-hour energy and not being able to continue. That kind of sucked. And on top of that, just not being able to win the championship, as much as I don't like Martin Truex Jr., it would have been nice to see them win the championship on the way out, but it was just, especially because of how much he talked a big game. Yeah. And he talked such a big game, and if he would have said after Martinsville, it's like, oh, that's racing. I'll try to outrace him. If he would have been like, yep, that's racing. And if he would have just reiterated, even after a couple weeks going into Homestead, if he would have been like, yeah, we're just going to have the best racer win. But he doubled down on this awful take of, he's not going to win the war.
Right.
Then you don't let him win the war, and you let him win the war. So your words mean nothing.
Right. So moving on to the Xfinity Series now. This was a fun race, too. On Saturday afternoon and into the night, Tyler Reddick, who
out of nowhere,
anyone who listened to the podcast that I put out on Saturday, please disregard how stupid I sounded when I said Tyler Reddick has absolutely zero chance of winning the championship.
So you gave him the championship. When you say someone has zero chance of winning something, if Nick says, and we've learned this on the other shows that we've done with Nick, if Nick says take this to the bank, you immediately put $1,000 on the other. Like if Nick says the New England Patriots are going to get the first round, the first overall pick in the draft, I am putting $2,000 on a Super Bowl win. I don't care if they're trotting out Nathan Peterman, right? No matter what you say, I've learned to do the opposite. So it was really funny because he didn't really have a chance to win this race until Cole Custer blew it. But Reddick also had one of the best cars there. He had a much better car than Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's team really just bet wrong. They said, we're going to run the bottom. That's how we're going to win this. And it just was not how you won it. Reddick had you saw the car that could run the top, had the best chance at Homestead this weekend. You saw it in all 3 races, really. And Tyler Reddick comes out of nowhere, sneaks his way into that Final 4, performed when it counted, and on his way out of Junior Motorsports gets to take a nice big trophy with him.
Right. And, this is, you look back at it, this is the second straight year that this number 9 team's won the title.
And the third out of the last 4 years, right? Because it was Elliott, Suarez.
Third out of the last 5 years, because you have Chris Buescher and Daniel Suarez in between them.
Okay.
Elliott was 2014, and then 2017 and 18 now, obviously. But, I mean, this is, this team knows how to get it done. Different crew chiefs, different drivers, obviously, all 3 times.
Same crew chief for the last 2 years.
Okay, last 2 years, same crew chief. But for Tyler Reddick, leaving this back-to-back defending championship team, going to an RCR team that hasn't won in really, I don't remember the 21 car winning since Kevin Harvick drove that thing and won like half the races one year. That was in, like,
but
06,
Austin Dillon won a championship in that car, so don't doubt him. I wouldn't say don't doubt him.
Do you think that this is the wrong choice for Reddick to leave this situation?
I think it's a perfect choice. We've seen with Daniel Hamrick how Daniel Hamrick has, if you would have done the old school points format, Hamrick would have been your champion.
And he would have locked it up 3 weeks ago.
He's been so consistent. So, Xfinity RCR is still pretty fast. They have 2 or 3 cars that can compete every week. And you can make the argument that they were getting faster in the Cup by the end of the year. So RCR is still a pretty decent program. So I think this is a good chance for Reddick to go to a lower pressure situation. Right. I think Junior Motorsports.
And now they have this team to fill now.
Well, I don't like the way Junior Motorsports is doing. I understand you're trying to make money, but Dale Jr., it's the pay driver formula for Dale Jr. and his team. And Tyler Reddick, he didn't come in as much money, but, Elliott Sadler was a pay driver. Noah Gragson, as young as he is, he's a pay driver, right? And you have 4 pay drivers. Michael Annett does not deserve to be racing in a top 3 series. That is complete BS. Like, Michael Annett sucks. And I will put that, I will write that on gold if you want me to.
Let's hope we never have Michael Annett on the show and he looks back at that. And
yeah, don't reach out to Michael Annett. Okay. We're going to just cross him off the list of potential interviews. But he would probably do an interview because he sucks.
Okay.
You got to get a chance to plug Pilot J. Anyway, but... I look at Junior Motorsports. I'm like, who they're going to fill that 1 car spot now too? Like, rumor had it was going to be Trevor Bayne, and then it sounds like Advocare is leaving the sport, so we don't know if Trevor Bayne's going to be back. We don't know what Daniel Suarez is doing yet. But for Junior Motorsports, man, like, I would have tried to hold on to Reddick. He's a young star. He just had a weird start to the year. He's going to be a good driver.
Right.
He's a champion now.
And Christopher Bell, obviously, 7 wins this year, but he didn't win the title. So, how would you grade this season for him? You're the report. You're the teacher.
If I'm going to give a report card to Christopher Bell, I'm going to give him an A. A+ is a championship. A is he should have won the championship, but his team just brought. Joe Gibbs just showed up slow this weekend when it mattered the most. I think his team put a lot of stock into running that bottom lane, and it just didn't work out for the kid. Yep. For the longest time, he had a great car this year, had a gret year, but, towards the end of the season, he fizzled out a little bit. He was in that must-win situation at Phoenix, and I want to revise that grade. That's going to be A-. A+ for A+ for the first 2 semesters, an A in the 3rd semester, but A-, maybe B+, depending on how that final test comes in. We'll see how he responds next year.
Yeah.
We'll see how he comes out in Daytona, knowing that he is going to run a full season in Xfinity and get to do this again. So.
Right. I'm giving him a B, honestly, because I think
harsh.
I'm the kind of teacher that puts a lot of emphasis on the final exam.
Losers don't win sport.
No pun intended. But I mean, geez, you got to win the championship when you win 7 races. I think you look at the 07 Patriots. People are like, that team won all those games, but they weren't undefeated. Sucks to be them. You look at the 2001 Seattle Mariners in baseball, won all these games, Lost in the first round of the Yankees.
So if you give Christopher Bell a B, what grade do you give Justin Allgaier?
Justin Allgaier? Oh, man. He didn't win 7 races, though. I don't think this championship was his as much as it was Christopher Bell's. Allgaier just had bad luck. Bell just didn't show up. Bell made it to Homestead and didn't show up. Allgaier had bad luck, and it cost him a chance to get to Homestead. I'm giving Allgaier probably a B as well, but...
You're giving him a B? Oh, man, I thought you were going to give him a C, to be quite honest. We should actually, this would be a really good end-of-the-year thing.
Report card for everyone.
We're going to book it. We're going to book this for next year, kids. We're going to do this. It's going to be... We're gonna brainstorm some drivers, because obviously, and we're gonna give them report cards. We are going to grade your drivers. That's what we're doing next week.
Grading your drivers right here on the Inside Groove. So then before we move on to trucks here real quickly, Daniel Hamrick, he moves to Xfinity here. He moves up to the Cup Series with 0 career wins. I mean, man, I know there's guys. You look at Jimmy Johnson, you look at Tony Stewart. They won their first Cup race.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson, good old 7-time. How many Xfinity wins did 7-time have?
Right. I know that's there, but man, is he ready for the Cup Series?
I think he's the perfect replacement for Ryan Newman. He is the perfect replacement for Ryan Newman because Daniel Hamrick was the best driver in the Xfinity Series this year. Didn't win a single race.
Right.
Always in the top 5. Always in the top 10. Always there at the end. Getting stage points. Just could not put it in victory lane. And I find it really hilarious that the kid could win a championship without winning a race. There's a part of me that wants Daniel Hamrick just to get like a bunch of 2nd to 10th place finishes and then go to Homestead and win the championship with like a 2nd or 3rd place. I would kill for that.
Right.
Because it'd be hilarious to just the interview of, you've never won a race, but you're now a Cup champion. How does it feel? just the ultimate. I want him to have a Hall of Fame career without winning a race. Like
really
7 championships,
7 championships,
no wins,
0 career
wins. And then I want to see people's heads explode when they're like, well, he never won, but he was he finished 2nd all the time. He's the greatest driver to never win, but he won so many championships.
Right.
I
think that would be funny too, but I think Daniel Hamrick's on the fast track for a perfectly average NASCAR career. I think he'll be around forever. I think
Ryan Newman.
I think he has the Ryan Newman written all over him, minus the 8 wins in 2003. I just think that Hamrick is going to be a perfectly average driver, and he's going to be one of those, Jamie McMurray, Ryan Newman kind of guys. Is he fully ready? I don't know. Only time can tell. If I had to guess, I would say probably, because I think that he's done 2 full seasons. He didn't get the luck to win the race, but he's been the best driver statistically. So
it's like you look at his truck starts at Brad Keselowski Racing. He finished 6th in the points, didn't win. Best finish was 2nd, I believe. You look at the year at NTS Motorsports, didn't win. Best finish was 4th. Like he's really good. He's a good driver. He just hasn't been able to finish yet.
Right.
Like the dude was 4th in points last year, 3rd in points this year. Didn't win. Like, he's so consistently good. He just can't put it in the victory lane. I think he'll break through in the Cup Series. I really do. I think if there's a driver that could help bring Richard Childress Racing back up to that next level,
Yeah. They do. I mean, he looks like he could be a good driver.
And, you just can't be, he's 27 years old, too. It's like, you just can't be so consistent without putting it in the victory lane by accident at one time. We see it with Chase Elliott where, it's going to happen. Like, there will be a race where something happens and Daniel Hamrick will win and we'll be like, whoa, even though he'll be like 3rd in the points. But, it's going to happen. You're not that consistent without a chance to win.
All right. So, last 5 minutes of the show, I know that you really wanted to talk about this. Brett Moffitt wins the Truck Series Championship.
Brett Moffitt story.
For Tory Racing.
This is a great story. This team has less than 15 employees, and I don't even know if Brett Moffitt will be back with this team next year because they struggled to find sponsorship.
This is a team, they won 6 races this year, won the championship, dominated pretty much every time they went to the track. Yet there's a bunch of races this year where they were like, okay, we don't know if we can have sponsorship.
We don't know if we're showing up.
They had 4 wins going into the Chicagoland race, or 3 wins going into the Chicagoland race. They had no sponsorship. They were in the playoffs. They got a team they got a sponsor to come on last second. They go out and win the race. This team is the epitome of the whole NASCAR sponsorship money crisis, because I mean they just had nothing going on for them financially, but they still go out win six of the 23 races. That's an incredible percentage.
It was the best driver
and win the
winning this
championship
year, and it's good to see him win. And man, Brett Moffitt, what a career this dude's had. He was rushed up. He had a good start. He was able to get a cup ride. He was able to run mediocre in a cup ride, and then he was just kicked out. And now this dude can finally call himself a championship. And he's not that old.
He's only 25, yeah.
He is 26 years old now, 1992. This is a guy who he should be getting calls from Xfinity teams. Junior Motorsports should be calling this dude right now and be like, hey, we got an opening in the one. We'll put you in it. We'll figure out the money later, right? You are a champion.
Dale Jr., for the record, though, he did explain why he won't bring Moffitt up next year unless Moffitt finds a sponsor, is that, he needs at least $5,000 or $5 million in sponsorship money, or else he won't even consider you. He said, Dale Jr. said on Twitter, it takes about $3 million to sponsor or to run a truck series team, and then that bumps up to about $6 million for Xfinity Series, and then $10 to $20 million for a Cup Series team. So this is the kind of money we're talking about. And these corporate sponsors are just, not in it. I personally don't blame them, because right now the product, and we're getting way off track here for 3 minutes to go, but the product is just not, you aren't going to make any money.
This is when Toyota Racing Development should step in and be like, we're going to make sure you race next year, or we're going to make sure you do this.
Somebody's playing music outside the studio.
Is that what is it? We got Christmas music going on here. But this is where, Toyota Racing Development should be like, wow, you are actually one of the better drivers in the lower tier. We're going to put you, this is where Toyota should go to Joe Gibbons and be like, get him a car.
Right.
Get him a car in the Xfinity Series. Let him run. Ryan Preece is not going to be back next year. Put him in Ryan Preece's car, right? And that might still happen. But, he won a championship. He's a good kid. 2015, he ran that weird season between Michael Waltrip and Front Row Motorsports. And then he ran a couple races with BK Racing last year. And then
I love it because, coming into this year, Brett Moffitt had never finished better than 30th in point standings in any of the top three series. Every time he ran, every year that he's run, he's finished 30th or worse.
And then he was at Red Horse Racing last year, and then, he had the 22nd, 11th, 6th, 7th, 18th, then they shut down.
Yeah.
And he was able to find this team that just formed. I think it was either last year or this year.
Hattori Racing has been around for 2 or 3 years now.
In 2013.
They were with Ryan Trex a couple years ago. But
they were, and, they find this team, and he's able to win, bring him a championship, and it's so good to see. It's such a heartwarming way to end the series and end that year for the trucks. Is the guy who had a good truck and a low team, he did well.
Now, for the last, minute and a half here, what happened to Johnny Sauter in this race? I mean, they just didn't show up. And my next question
is... I'm so glad Johnny Sauter lost, because he talked so much crap about Brett Moffitt this year. He's like, well, they got them Toyota engines, bud. It's like, dude, you just got beat. I'm so glad he got the floor wiped with him.
Sauter, man.
I love me those Johnny Sauter tears.
Yeah, he just never really showed up for this race. Man, I think this carries on next year. I think, we're going to see some decline out of him. Same with Matt Crafton. I mean, these are two of the legends of this series that are going to kind of, I think, fall off in the next years or so. Real quickly before we head out, I think Justin Haley is the favorite to win the title next year in the Truck Series. He said he's coming back. He won 3 races this year for an upstart 24 team for GMS. Look out for this kid. He's only 19. He's going to be 20 next year. Almost won the Xfinity Series race at Daytona. Probably should have won it, but the rules are the rules. So let's probably talk about that, next couple of weeks.
Next week we can talk about young drivers that'll do good, and we can give report cards. We got a lot on top.
Report cards coming up next week.
Your hook for next week. Tune in next week.
Next week, 7 o'clock, Facebook Live, Channel 15. That's all for tonight, though, here on the Inside Groove. I'm Nick. He's Dustin.
The Joey Logano diecast one more time.
We'll see you guys next week right here on the Inside Groove.